If somebody says they're going to give you a call in a couple of days and they don't call you back, that should tell you the conversation wasn't as good as you thought it was. That tells you there's a break in your sales process, right? I'm not trying to be mean, it's just the truth. If somebody who's so interested doesn't call you back and then they go and list their house with somebody else, it wasn't because they liked that person better. It's because that other person did something different that you didn't know. What's up? Vikram Deal here with the Trust Report Influence Sales Method, otherwise known as TRIZ. Today, we're going to be talking about the DHIS formula, right? The disarm, humanize, isolate, and solve. Why is this important? Why does it matter? And why do we need to do it? Let's jump into it. So when we think about what we're doing inside of a presentation, and when we think about how do we actually have conversations with our prospects around objections, what we normally do is we just spew out a bunch of information and we hope and pray that the prospect is going to enjoy it. And we just do like a word vomit or a word salad, and we kind of hope and pray. And the problem is that we're not addressing the prospect's true concerns. We're assuming we know what they want, and then we want to rush through to get to the end of the objection handling process because we're uncomfortable. And what happens is that kills deals. So when you rush an objection because you're nervous, you don't know what to say, you assume that you know what to say, you assume you know what the prospect's thinking, what happens is you're winging it. And in a tough market like what we're in now, it's going to kill you. So we're going to teach you the TRIZ, DHIS formula, right, to solve objections. And because of that, you're going to actually be able to manage your emotions and manage the prospect's emotions and actually get to what really matters. Number one, D, disarm. So if a prospect's armed, right, when a prospect's armed, right, they are going to have resistance. Makes sense, right? When a prospect is disarmed, they're going to have no resistance. Now, when a prospect gives you an objection and you do a word vomit, what do you think they feel? Do you think they're like, oh my God, that was awesome, No, they're going to feel tension. And once the tension is up, then you're going to have to fight through it. It becomes very difficult. Prospects and you don't want to do that. So they're going to say, hey, let me call you back in a couple of days. I need to think about it. You're going to say, sure, no problem. We'll call you next Tuesday. You don't have a good calendar close, and we never hear from them again. All right. So the first thing we do is we disarm the prospect. All right. And I'll show you guys a few ways on how to do that. But we first disarm the prospect. A simple thing that you could do to actually, I'll just give it to you now. Let's say that you have a prospect that's, let's say it's a buyer, and the buyer prospect says something like, well, we don't want to pay a commission. And you're like, okay, well, let me tell you about all the things that I do. And I want to share with you this, and I want to share with you that. And the prospect goes, whew, we get you do a lot, but you didn't actually solve our problem. All you did was talk about yourself. So one of the things that we're teaching our clients that's working really well in light of our lawsuit is when a prospect says something like, we don't want to pay a commission, right? Super simple. Well, yeah, no worries. I mean, nobody wants to pay extra money, right? Yeah, no worries. Like nobody wants to just pay a commission. I guess like, would it be cool if we chatted a little bit about kind of like what you mean? And they're like, sure. So yeah, like no worries. Like no worries. Would it be okay if we could have a conversation? Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, who wants to spend more money, right? And they go, yeah. And now you guys are aligned on the same side. Now, a lot of times when people do this step, they're like, Vic, we can't tell them that they shouldn't pay a commission because then they're gonna be like, yeah, well, we're not paying. Well, right now they're also not paying, right? And you guys are adversarial instead of being advisories, right? So it really doesn't matter because you're not going to force somebody to do something they don't want to do. And if you can't have the conversation, then you're stuck. The second thing is we're going to talk about humanizing and isolating, right? Oftentimes we make assumptions that we actually understand what they're talking about. So we want to just slow down and have a conversation. Yeah, so help me out. When you say you don't want to pay a commission, how do you mean? Or you could be like, commission? And they'll be like, yeah, we don't have any extra money for a commission. So we want to work with you, but we need to find a better way to make that happen. You're like, oh, okay. And then the third is solve, right? Once we disarm the prospect, now we can actually work with them to solve the problem, right? So DHIS, right? This formula, you need to learn this formula, is disarm. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, hey, right? Yeah, no worries. Or yeah, like that could possibly make sense. I'm not quite sure yet. Can we talk about maybe some different perspectives? Like, yeah, hey, that makes sense. Sometimes there's things that they say that actually make sense. And you're like, that actually makes sense to the prospect, but it doesn't make sense to the process. So sometimes you're just like, yeah, that makes sense. I guess would it be okay if I could give you a slightly different perspective before we move forward? Sure. What's up, Vic? Humanize and isolate, right? Isolate the real objection. Just start to talk about it. So how did you mean by blank? When you said blah, what did you mean? Well, our friend said that you shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. Oh, okay. Tell me a little bit more about your friend. Right now, we're having a conversation. Once you get their real objection, then we can solve it. If you don't have the true objection, you're only solving a word salad. And if you're solving a word salad, instead of you being on their side, you're actually working against them. And they're going to feel stress and they're going to feel pressure and they're not going to want to move forward with you. And so they're going to say, hey, can we call you next week? But they're not going to say it in a mean way. So like, hey, oh my God, this was great. Thank you so much for coming over. I really appreciate you coming over. Oh, this was awesome. We'll give you a call in a couple of days. If somebody says they're going to give you a call in a couple of days and they don't call you back, like that should tell you the conversation wasn't as good as you thought it was. That tells you there's a break in your sales process, right? Like, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just the truth. If somebody who's so interested doesn't call you back and then they go and list their house with somebody else, it wasn't because they liked that person better. It's because that other person did something different that you didn't know, right? And it's not your fault that you weren't trained. Nobody gave you the listing presentation. Nobody gave you a proper buying presentation. It's not your fault you weren't trained. It is your problem though, because you're not consistent. You're not getting the life you want. You're not having the sales you want. You're on the roller coaster. You've plateaued. Maybe you're doing a deal or two a month, right? It's fairly good, but you're plateaued. You're not doing like top agent business. Your money's not growing. You're working all these crazy hours. It's not about working harder, right? It's about having the right systems and processes. So if you enjoyed this and you want to learn more about what we're doing with our clients, just like you, who came in with the same exact problems, empty calendars, low conversion on buyer and sellers, not wanting to do the activities, the IPA, the income producing activities, not having the right words to say in a buyer presentation, not teaching the sellers that there's a strategy before there's a price. We don't go on home tours, right? We come over to strategize. We're not here to look at your house and tell you how beautiful it is. We're here to have a strategy session, and then we'll go look at the house. Because if you don't want to hire me, then why are you showing me your house in the first place, right? All of these things play a big role in the objections that you're getting. So oftentimes we do what's called objection prevention by our presentations, but you're still going to get them at the end. So you still need this formula. But a lot of the objections that our clients were getting before they started working with us, right, in the trust, rapport, influence, sales method, before they started working with us and implementing an actual strategy, they were getting a lot of the standard objections. And then they learned how to handle objections in the presentations. And now their presentations are a lot quicker, a lot faster, a lot smoother, and they don't have the objections. So if you want to learn a little bit more about what we're doing, there should be a link somewhere below. Just click it, book a time in with me or one of our business developers, and we'll walk you through exactly what we do. But make sure you guys are implementing DHIS, right? Tag me on a social, wherever you found me, tag me after you've started implementing this. I get excited to just know that you're doing good work, and I'll see you on the other side. See ya.